weekly Dartscast in the chat there, guys. If you love these sort of things, chatting darts, listening to, go check them out. If you haven't done so already, get on Twitter, get on social media, go check out the weekly Dartscast. Absolutely brilliant podcast, guys. They have different guests on all the time, and they're always finger on the pulse with that. They're always relevant guests, really good questions as well. Go check them out, guys. They are worth having a look at.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and joining me as always my co-host, Darts statistician, and after a week which saw neither Mark Webster or myself hit the road, he is once again the Darts Driver King, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
Yeah, although I don't know if you've seen my response to your message earlier, but it looks like both of us had the same problem in our run yesterday. We headed out and all of a sudden it started raining. So I think I've dried off since yesterday, so I'm doing all right. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, you're a lot more committed than I am, and good to chat again, and lots to bring you on this week's show. Before we start, though, big shout out to our producer, Hanna, who was in Blackpool at the Winter Gardens at the weekend for the Women's World Matchplay. Go and have a listen to her work from the weekend. Lots of interviews with the players involved, and you're going to hear one of those interviews on this show. You're going to hear from the newly crowned Women's World Matchplay champion, Fallon Sherrock. Plus, we've got Raymond Smith calling in from Australia after he qualified for Ali Pali. And David Pallett joins us as well for the first time after recently winning his first titles in not just the WDF, but also the PDC as well in successive weekends. So lots to get to, but we'll start with the World Matchplay and Michael van Gerwen winning a third World Matchplay title, first since 2016, backing up his victory in the Premier League earlier this year. What could this latest win mean for MVG going into the rest of 2022?
Oh, it can only mean that the world is his oyster again. And this is one of his weirder titles that he's had. And maybe that's to be expected because he's become the new handicapper's nightmare, at least last year and part of this year. I don't think we can call him that anymore because there is a little increased predictability in this game, but it's still not fully clicking. But when it does, he's unplayable. And he was unplayable for, the second half of the match against Dimitri Vandenberg. He was unplayable for much of that match in the final against Gerwyn Price. But there was also performances where if his opponent showed up, he would have been going out. First round against Adrian Lewis was one of the dullest matches of the event, but Van Gerwen figured out how to get it done. Joe Cullen also didn't show up, but boy, did MVG, especially in the second half of that match, really up his game. But then against Nathan Aspinall, it looked like he was going to cross the line. He was 15-10 up. Aspinall, okay, he had a big 1-6-4 checkout, but MVG also missed 3 clear darts at double. And it only took a 1-4-6 out in the 30th leg with Nathan waiting on a triple to double combo for him to avoid a tiebreak there. And he was in a world of pain against Dimitri Vandenberg and a world of pain in the final against Gerwyn Price, but upped his game and figured out how to get it done and get over the line. Aided, and especially in the final, by the fact that Gezi did fall off in the second half of that match. But what does it mean for him going forward? Well, he's shown that he can win again. And, he did that in the Premier League, had to survive a championship dart in the final. But that was one title. Now he's added a second, in the second consecutive of the big sky majors, the Triple Crown, if you will. He did it for the first time now in 6 years that he's won here, and he's done it in what is the second biggest event on the calendar. He's back to being a contender, and one that's not just we know from experience he's a contender, but on what we're seeing right now, a contender in every single event. The consistency is still not there, and if Gerwyn Price had played like he had every single match up until the final, MVG was not coming back in that match. If Dimitri Vandenberg had just been able to hit a couple more shots late, MVG would have gone out. As I said, in each of the other 3 matches, the first 2, if his opponents had shown up, and in the quarterfinal, if Nathan Aspinall hadn't waited so long to get going in that match, it would have been different. But MVG found a way to win, and he found a way to lift his game in each and every one of those matches, so that even if he wasn't playing a full match at the standard that he would have 6 years ago, he was at times and at the right times. And that makes him a legitimate contender in every event the rest of the year, even if he's not the favorite. And we'll get to that in a second, I think, because we'll talk about Gerwyn Price. But even if he's not the favorite, he's in that conversation again. Maybe, just maybe, he will be the favorite.
Michael, after the final, called it one of the greatest wins of his career, and that's quite a statement when you consider the success that he's had. This title makes him only the second player to have won all 7 of the active PDC televised ranking events 3 times, Phil Taylor, of course, being the other player. But so there's a lot of competition for what would be regarded as Michael's best ever wins. But you look at the final, 4-0 down, 9-5 down. He was trailing for a lot of it. And from 13-14 down, we saw that Michael van Gerwen surge, which was, a trademark of his. He'd reel off 4 or 5 legs, take the game away from his opponent, and those 5 legs that he won, 3 of them he had a ton plus finish, a 130, and then the last 2 legs, 114, 121 to win the title. And it was a strange final, and 34 missed doubles in that final, and it looked like he was fighting with himself at times, trying to get the genie out of the bottle, bring out that magic formula where all the parts of his game are working in unison. And we've got to say, his scoring power was there, wasn't it? 1,580s, 1,840 plus scores, the 5 ton plus finishes, and some other combination shots in there as well. I think there was like an 81, an 86, a 90 in there as well. So a lot of his game was clicking, but for some of it, the doubles really did let him down, and he just managed to find that bit of form when he needed it the most in the final. Even the night before the semi-finals, the only time he took the lead was to go 15-14 up and then win the next 2 to beat Dimitri van den Berg in that semi-final. And the game with Nathan Aspinall, you mentioned it there, he almost got pegged back into overtime, get to the 1-4-6 to win that game. And you think back to the first round as well against Adrian Lewis, he averaged under 90 and the bookmakers still put him as the favourite. And that raised quite a few eyebrows, I think, given the other performances that we saw in the first round of the tournament. But he's come out on top, not playing at his A game, but he's only going to take confidence from doing that and winning a title like the World Matchplay title that he's not won for 6 years. After winning the Premier League, again, that's a title that he's not won for a few years. And after the World Championship, you look in terms of prize money, they are the second and third biggest in darts, and he's got his hands on both of them. And okay, he's not back to his best at the moment, but he is finding ways to win these big titles, and that's something that we can't really say too much given the last 2.5 years that he's been able to do. But the confidence he'll get from winning these titles is going to make him dangerous, and I think if he can get closer to that form from that almost invincible run that he had, then that's only going to make him harder to beat. So yeah, another big title in his collection, and it's only going to help him push forwards, I think.
Now, it's a first Blackpool final for Gerwyn Price, leaving just the Premier League as the only major he hasn't yet made the final of. And he also only managed to throw a 9-darter and move back to world number 1 en route. But how disappointed do you think he'll be on reflection not to have gone all the way?
I think he will be, and going into that final on Sunday night, it was looking like being the perfect week in Blackpool for Gerwyn Price. Friday, he won his quarter-final against Jose de Souza, 16-14, that 104 average, and that was a win that put him back to the world number 1 position after Peter Wright lost to Dimitri van den Berg the night before. Then Saturday night, as you mentioned, gets the 9-darter against Danny Noppert, wins that game, 102 average, and I think he went into that final, I think it was a slight favourite with the bookmakers, and for a lot of what I was seeing on social media online, people were backing Price to win the final, and it wasn't a case of who would win the final, it was how close would the final be, how competitive would Michael make the final. But it had a lot of build up. It was bound to that. The Sky coverage didn't start until 9 p.m. here in the UK. It was getting on a little bit when we finally got underway, but it was the first time they'd met in a major final on Sky, Gerwyn Price and Michael van Gerwen, and surprisingly the first on TV since the 2020 UK Open in any TV knockout tournament. So it's been a little while since these two have met in one of these major finals. And you joked when we were watching the final, Price only played 3 of the legs in the first 2 sessions, yet he was in front for so much of the final. And at the start, he was clinical on those doubles, 60-65% on the finishes. And as the final wore on, he started to miss, and Van Gerwen's scoring power, that did give him more chances. He started to find those combination finishes a lot more frequently. And fair play to Gerwyn Price. I thought he was quite magnanimous in defeat. I thought he came across really well in his interview on stage, and he said it didn't happen for him in the final. Michael was a deserving winner, and Gerwyn Price doesn't often fall short in these finals. I think he'd won 4 of his last 5 singles finals on TV going into it, and I think he will see it as a missed opportunity because he had been playing well in the tournament. He'd come through a lot of close games. Martin Schindler in the first round, Dave Chisnell in the second round. He was pushed in every single game, but he was coming through all of them. And to just fall short in the final, I think he is going to be disappointed. And he's finding a way to get those 9 darters. He's the first player to throw 3 9 darters on TV in a year. He's now the first to throw 4 9 darters on TV in a year. Maybe he's looking towards double figures. That might be a bit much, but he's back to world number 1. And for a lot of the week, he was playing like a world number 1 again. And it's a position that he does now hold in the rankings. And I think this run will give him a bit of renewed belief that his game is coming back in the right direction as we come into that busy end of the year. And he's won a major every year since his first one in 2018, 4 years in a row. Can he make it 5 in a row? I think there's going to be a time when he's going to win that major title this year, and I don't think it's too far away from making it 5 years in a row.
Yeah, you said something near the end there that I was going to say, and, well, I'll still say it anyway, and that looked like the world number 1 again. He's looked like the world number 1 before. Many times on the European Tour, even more often in Players' Championship events. But I don't think we've really seen over the course of an entire televised tournament him, quote unquote, look like the world number 1. He's had matches where he's done it, and he's obviously won the world title. He's won 3 Grand Slams. He's figured out ways to, even when not looking like the world number 1, still come away with the title. I just talked about how Michael Van Gerwen did that for most of this past week as well. But this was really the first time over the course of an entire televised tournament where Gezi looked like the best player on the planet. Maybe not reaching the same heights as Peter Wright did in winning this title 1 year ago, but coming close at times, particularly in the quarterfinals and semifinals, where he was really just unplayable. And even before that, just playing at a very high standard, even if not his best, in what was 2 really difficult matches to get there against Martin Schindler, who, credit where credit's due, Martin Schindler looked like a future top 16 player. Obviously, we know he's a very good player on the floor on the Euro Tour, but we hadn't seen him bring it to the television like he did in that match. He made Gezi play near Gezi's best in that match, and he pushed him all the way. And Dave Chisnell played fairly well, but it always seemed like Gerwen Price was going to win that match. But after that, he really did look like the world number 1 for the first time. And he did get back to being the world number 1 as a result, but he didn't get the trophy. And the world number 1 doesn't come to be runner-up. You're not runner-up in the rankings. You never want to be runner-up in a tournament when you're the highest-ranked player in the world, because that means you've been upset by someone, even if it is against the second-best player of all time, like he was in the final against Michael Van Gerwen. And to have been 4-0 up, to have been 9-6 up at the third break, to even when MVG struggled a bit in that fifth session, to not be able to make up ground, to just have to be hanging on and then get blitzed away at the end like that will be disappointing, because he had Van Gerwen on the ropes and he couldn't even get a punch in, let alone a knockout blow. And for someone who for almost the entire week up until that very end of the final looked like the best player on the planet and a deserved world number 1, to not get the title will be disappointing. But as you also said, there will be more events coming up, and it looks like the worst of the injury battles are behind him, as they are, it appears, for Michael Van Gerwen as well. And that's going to make Gerwen Price all the more dangerous. He knows he can and will beat MVG in other events. It wasn't to be this time. He'll get, like you said, that major for the 5th consecutive year, and he'll show why he's the world number 1, like he did this past week, even if, disappointingly to him, it didn't result in the trophy.
We'll continue our review of the World Matchplay in a moment, but let's get to our first guest on this week's show, and it comes from the Winter Gardens. Here's our chat with the newly crowned Women's World Matchplay champion, Fallon Sherrock.
Fallon, huge congratulations. How does it feel to be the first name on that amazing trophy and be the Betfred Women's Matchplay champion?
That feels amazing. I mean, if someone had said that to me like a week ago, I'd be like, really? I don't believe you. But, I always kind of had like a self-belief in myself, and I can look at this and think all the pressure that's behind me and stuff is worth it, just to say that I've won like a really big title and stuff. And I think that's the biggest trophy I've ever won in my life.
through the day, you played some very consistent stuff. That must please you, because it's been a difficult few months or so. The form's been up and down, but today was more like the old you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I just need to kind of put the hours in more and focus on what I actually want to do and stuff, because this one I knew it was to get to the Grand Slam, and that's what I wanted to do, like, for definite, and I want to get to the Grand Slam, so I tried my hardest to try and win it. Just as soon as Lisa went out, I was like, okay, I have to win it. So yeah, I think it's what it is.
You played on many magnificent stages, Ali Pally, Madison Square Garden, but how did it feel coming here, walking through and playing on that iconic stage?
Probably about the same, because they're all iconic. To me it was like, oh my god, I'm actually at another iconic venue. I'm going to take every opportunity I can and kind of run with it, and I've done really well now, so I'm pleased that I'm taking it, like, each opportunity that I'm getting, and I'm just not embarrassing myself.
The trajectory Ladies Darts is on is unreal right now. The PDC have announced an expansion of the Ladies Series as well, and obviously this is the showcase event for you to go there. Is this now the premier event in women's darts?
Yeah, I think it is, to be fair. I'm not being funny, like, it's because it's such a small number of women that can actually qualify for it. I think it's kind of making it, women want to play. They want to play on the big stages. They want to play, for money, like really big money. And because it's such a small opportunity, it's only 8. So hopefully it encourages more women, to play in the women's series and kind of go, do you know what? They done really well at that competition. I want to be part of it. I want to try and get to Grand Slam, and I want to try and get to the Worlds.
Many congratulations.
Thank you.
Fallon, how were the nerves coming into this event? Obviously, you played in some of the sport's biggest tournaments.
Absolutely over the top. I was so nervous coming into this because I didn't know what I was going to do, because obviously the World Series have been like up and down and stuff, and I was like, okay, I just need to kind of try and focus and try and just produce something. And I think I've done enough, obviously, but I think there's still more there's still more I can do, and I think I'm going to go away from this filled with confidence, and hopefully you'll see a better Fallon next time you see me on TV.
Yeah, what does this do for you now going into the next batch of World Series events?
Hopefully it boosts me confidence. I know what I'm capable of, and I know, what I can do, so hopefully it's like, I've just won this. I first title I've won, so take it and run with it now.
Cheers, Fallon.
Thank you.
Fallon, it could have been a very different story in that first round with Katie as well. She threw some excellent darts. How were the nerves in that one when Katie was throwing those big finishes?
Yeah, I'm quite grateful she missed them doubles, to be honest. Kind of let me in. But yeah, no, I knew Katie was going to play well anyway, because she just reminds me of me when I was younger. You're not scared of anyone or anything. You just go and play your game. And it's quite scary to think, how she's playing now, what she's going to be like in a couple of years. She's already, got herself onto the stage, so more opportunities given to her, she's going to excel.
Yeah, you've got Katie, obviously got Chloe O'Brien, and Bo Greaves has already said she'll be playing in the women's series next year. The standard's just going to go up and up, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think what it is as well, I think it's going to make us play better as well. I think all these young people coming through, kind of pushing the game, it's going to make us, normal people will do it as well, play better, because we know we're going to have to up our game. So I cannot wait, to see what's pushed against me now.
Do you think Bo will be right up there with you and Lisa in the order of merit?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, Bo's just quality now. Imagine, next year when she's got all the experience and stuff from doing all the WDF, she's already world champion. Imagine how many other people she's going to be able to push, and it'd be exciting to see where Bo finishes at the women's series next year.
Perfect. Cheers.
Thank you.
Fallon, how far are we away from a women's World Championship?
I don't know. I think there's a few, boundaries that need to kind of be crossed first. I think, we've just got 8 women now. There's a few others, but there is still a massive gap. So I think we do need, the women's series to carry on and kind of give the other women more confidence and, more professional play. And then hopefully in a couple of years and stuff, we might be looking at that. But I genuinely think it ain't far off. We just need to kind of boost all the other women with confidence, because I think that's just what women are lacking.
Yeah, I know Eddie has spoke about it previously, but obviously it's something that's on the horizon, and hopefully, you're all pushing for it.
Hopefully. I mean, I've just kind of knocked this barrier off my thing, because I've never done well on a women's event, so I'm like, okay, no, I've done well this time, so it's fine.
But how good would it, to see the Women's World Championship at Ali Pallett?
No, it'd be really good. I mean, it'd be a great opportunity for the women as well, and it kind of showgoes obviously what we can do, and hopefully, instead of seeing us on an odd occasion, see us more regularly, hitting 90 to 100 averages, because we can do it. It's just we need, more opportunities to prove ourselves and get the confidence.
What is it about the biggest stages that sort of brings the best out of you?
I don't know what it is. It's every time that I'm so bad on the floor, but you put me up on the stage and I just seem to kind of just cross the line and do really well, and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's adrenaline rush, I don't know.
So if women's darts does continue, there's more events like this, that's good for you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's obviously going to help my game if there's more opportunities for the women and stuff, but I still obviously would like, to play against the men as well, because I love playing against the men, because it's like, you know what you're getting. You're getting the 90 to 100 averages, whereas when you play the women at the moment, because they're not filled with a lot of confidence, you could get a 90 average or you can get a 75. There's quite a difference in it.
The last TV tournament that you won was the 2018 BDO Women's Worlds, and you've obviously done a ton since then. What is it like to briefly take a moment and reflect on everything you've achieved in that time to now?
Do you know what? I was actually thinking of that earlier, because I was like, I thought, I played Lorraine in the semi. I was like, I played her at the World Trophy and stuff like that, so it kind of geared me on knowing that I could beat Lorraine and stuff like that. But, looking back and all that, it's just mental to think how much has happened since then. But every little thing that I do, just boosts me with confidence, and hopefully I can just carry on just doing what I'm doing.
And obviously when we talk about the future of darts, it's changed so much month to month even within the women's game. What are your goals for the future and plans for the future? Obviously you're still in the WDF Order of Merit. Are you looking to go back to the Worlds there? Are you looking for Q School? What are you looking for? Sky's the limit now.
I don't even know if I'm still on that, but no, I just want to take every opportunity that I can, whatever combat I can qualify for and stuff like that, I will. But I think at the moment, I want to try and win more trophies like this. I want to try and win more majors. I want to try and make a living for me and my little boy at the moment. I'm just going to take every opportunity I can and try and run with it. I haven't actually set any set goals, but obviously every comp that I play in, I want to win. You don't go into a comp thinking you can, first round I'll be alright. No one ever thinks that.
And how do you celebrate a big win like this? Do you have time between now and Australia to enjoy yourself properly?
Yeah, no, definitely. It depends what Harriet's doing later, to be fair, when we get home. So I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing yet. But I'm
rumours that you're still in the market for a new car from
Yes. No, please give me a new car.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Fallon for joining us. Now we're going to carry on our review of the World Matchplay. Come to the first of our two questions of the week, and it is, how would you rate the 2022 World Matchplay?
I thought, I guess this is just like the event 2 years ago, but the opposite. Because if you go back to the 2020 World Matchplay, there were a lot of really, really good matches in the first couple rounds. And then the semifinals were great. But beyond that, the quarterfinals were a little dry and the final was very one-sided. This time around, there were a couple good matches in the first few rounds. I mentioned one previously in the last question in Gordon Price, Martin Schindler. The Michael Smith, Andrew Gilding match lived up to the hype I gave it. Dirk van Dijvenbode, Ryan Searle was a fantastic match. But there were a lot of duds in the first couple rounds, some of which I mentioned, others which I don't want to waste time talking about. And it led to a very uneven and fairly long first few days because the matches just by and large weren't living up to it. But from the quarterfinal stage on, it was as good, if not better, than any event we've seen. Similar to the World Championship this past year, but the semifinals were a bit down, or at least one of the semifinals was a bit down in the World Championships, although granted one of the semifinals here was as well. And maybe also the Grand Slam from 2 years ago, which was just that quarterfinal day of the Grand Slam is still the greatest day of darts I've ever seen. And that entire last few rounds that week were just incredible. I think this quarterfinals on is on par because of the 7 matches, 6 of them were really, really good. The only one that wasn't was Gurr and Price against Danny Noppert, and it wasn't because, by good I mean competitive, and it wasn't because they weren't playing well. It was because Gezi was unplayable in that. He only threw a 9-darter and almost threw a second 9-darter. The one letdown of a match was that one. The last 3 rounds of this event were incredible, and it made up for the fact that there were a lot of duds in the first couple rounds. Overall, I guess I'll have to give it a grade. I'll give it a B+, because a tournament isn't just the last 3 rounds. Considering how well everyone was playing going in, that there were that many poor matches in the first couple rounds, I think has to be dinged somewhat. But the event finished over the top, and in the end, we had a deserving final. The 2 best players over the course of the week in it, and they had a final that lived up to it, even if in the end, one of them ran away.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And we said in our preview show of the World Matchplay, it's a tournament that both of us hold in high regard. For me, it is my favourite tournament on the PDC calendar. I love the long format from the start. The venue, the Winter Gardens, that's my favourite I've been to. And I'm a fan of a weekend anytime in Blackpool as well. And funny you mentioned that 2020 World Matchplay, because I was thinking back to that one when I was comparing this event to previous match plays. And that one in 2020, that was the first TV event back after the lockdown. It was behind closed doors, and I did enjoy that one. Not sure if it was just the novelty of darts being back after that long break, but there were close games for most nights. There was a game or two that you'd remember, and apart from the final being quite one-sided in that one. But last year we probably remember it most for the dominance of Peter Wright more than anything. And although that was enjoyable to watch for me as a neutral, that the last 3 rounds there wasn't really any close games, and there was a fair few one-sided ones in the first round as well. But this year, it was more like that 2020 edition. That we did have the overtime games in round 1. We had Michael Smith, Andrew Gilding, Rob Cross, Chris Dobie. Rob Cross 8-2 down, coming back to win that one. And the second round, the game, Peter Wright and Christoph Ratajski, another comeback in that one. And for me, one of the best games of the year so far for me. That was a good one. I can't really comment on the Wednesday games because I didn't see them, but Jose de Souza, Rob Cross, that sounded like a cracker, both averaging 103 in that one. And good to see Jose de Souza playing well again on the stage, a player that we mentioned in the build-up as someone that didn't have a lot of form coming into this tournament, but it was good to see him get back to some form. And the quarterfinals, 3 of the 4 going 16-14, the Peter Wright, Dimitri Vandenberg game, that's one. I can't remember a game or many games like it that swung so many ways. Peter Wright getting off to that hot start, Dimitri winning 10 legs in a row, Peter Wright coming back and looking like he was going to win it, and then Dimitri holding him off, and what a last leg it was to win that one. And the Van Gogh in Aspinall game, we've spoke about that fight back from Aspinall and the brilliance at the end from Michael. Semi-finals as well, we had the 9-darter and Dimitri being pipped at the post by Michael in the other semi-final. The final, it was certainly entertaining, if anything else. So for me, I'd say it is a thumbs up for this World Matchplay. Is it the best? I'm probably looking at a few others and got to cast my mind back a few years, but 2018, when Gary Anderson won the title, that final with Mensa that year, we had Jeffrey Desvan's run to the semi-finals. We had the Gary Anderson, Joe Cullen game. 2019 as well, that was a fairly good year. Rob Cross winning the title, that epic comeback against Darryl Gurney. And going back a few years as well, 2013 I want to mention as well, because we had that Phil Taylor, Adrian Lewis final, both averaging over 105. The MVG Lewis semi-final, we had the Whitlock Wade, Lewis Hamilton. I think they were the quarterfinals, 18-16, 19-17. So 2 games that went into overtime there, which were really enjoyable. But for me, for a week of darts, the match play rarely disappoints, and I thought this was another good year.
Always nice when Lewis Hamilton gets a mention darts podcast. Move on to our third guest of the week, and it's with David Pallett. Oh, sorry, our second guest on the week. I can't even count. And it's with David Pallett.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of the newest winners on the Challenge Tour, David Pallett. Thanks for the time, David. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, full of confidence at the minute. Everything seems to be going well. So, yeah, happy boy at the minute.
Well, it's been a little over a week now since you won your first PDC title over in Germany on the Challenge Tour. Has the excitement worn off yet, or are you still on a high from winning that title?
Yeah, definitely still on the high. I think, a bit shattered after coming back from Germany, and then had a few days off, and then back down to Southampton now. So I haven't had much time to let it sink in, but no, happy to have won, and back down to earth from performance yesterday. But today's been a bit better, so I can't complain too much.
Well, we'll come back to that title later, but let's rewind back to the start for you in darts. I was reading up, you started playing darts when you were 8 years old. How did you get introduced to the game?
So my dad looked after a pub. He ran a pub for a little while in Cheswood Island in Shropshire. And obviously I was going to school and coming back and just chucking a few darts with him, and that's how I sort of got into it, really. And then from there started playing the odd league game, and I'd get a game in the doubles and things like that. And then obviously once I started making a bit of a contribution in the doubles, got playing in singles, and then started playing Super League. And I remember men's county debut when I was 13. So it sort of snowballed from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, at 8 years old, interests, they can come and go quickly, but as you say, just 5 years later at 13, you are representing Shropshire in county in the men's side of things. What was that like, getting that experience at such a young age?
Yeah, it was brilliant, I never really felt nerves or anything before that. I just sort of went up there, played my darts, enjoyed it, and just got on with it. But it's the first time I felt a bit of pressure and nerves and everything like that. And I just remember sort of gut feeling of like sickness before I got called on, or as I was getting called on, and I thought I was gonna throw up sort of thing. But now I got through it, and lost my first game. But went on to win my next game after that, and never looked right back, really.
As a youngster, you also got to put on the England shirt representing your country in, I think, 2 WDF Europe Youth Cups, one in Germany and one here in England. What were those experiences like?
Yeah, fantastic, I met Ricky Evans, who was my doubles partner in the first Europe Cup about 3 or 4 months before. We played for the North of England together in Scotland, and we met each other then. We clicked, gelled straight away, and he's been one of my best mates in darts ever since, really, since I was about 16. So that was a really good thing for me, meeting Ricky and being good mates with him. And obviously that Europe Cup team at the time was probably one of the best that's ever been, really. I mean, there was myself, Ricky Evans, Ross Smith, who's obviously smashing it at the minute as well, and Richie George, who obviously people don't need to know too much about because he's absolutely fantastic as well.
And from England youth to England seniors, that senior call-up comes a few years later as well. What was that moment like, finding out that you'd made the squad for the England men's team?
Yeah, it was fantastic, really. The youth one was more of a surprise because I didn't really know I'd been put forward for it, and I got a phone call when I was just at a Friday night sort of individuals league, and my county chairman at the time sort of said, "Oh, David, you've got to call in and let me know." And I told my dad, and obviously he knew he'd put me forward for it and everything, so that was a big surprise. But with the men's one, I'd been chasing that for like a year. I was playing for Shropshire at the time. We were in Division 4, and it's a bit harder to get picked while you're in Division 4 of the counties to get picked for, obviously, England. So I moved to Cheshire with Pauline Stafford, and obviously the Cheshire side at the time was unbelievable. I was playing with the likes of Bobby Green, Tony O'Shea, Darryl Fitton, Stuart Kellett, Bousfield, Pete Bowie, Ian White, Gary Robson, Stephen Bunting. It was, a star-studded lineup, and I made my way into the A team after 2 games, and pushed from England's spot and managed to get my call up into the home nations at Merthyr. So that was brilliant. I was buzzing for that one.
Yeah, it's definitely a great team, and the England men's team as well for that British Internationals in 2012. Looking at the list of names that you played alongside, you had Scott Mitchell, Martin Adams, Scott Waits, Glenn Durrant, to name a few. How special was that weekend, winning the title as well?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I wasn't sure whether I was going to get into the team straight away, but I got picked for the first game, and I think I only played off 2 games that weekend, sort of is on the home internationals against Scotland and Wales, and I won both my games. But to be in a room and be on the practice board with the likes of them players, it was fantastic. I think playing for Cheshire and amongst some of the players that I mentioned previously really set me in good stead to not be too overwhelmed with the players that I was then practicing with. But that England side was fantastic. It's probably one of the greatest England sides that have been in recent years, sort of thing. Obviously, a lot of players have moved on and done their own thing and moved to the PDC and everything these days. But that England side at the time was fantastic. It was a pleasure to be a part of that.
Well, switching over from the BDO side of things to the PDC, and your first PDC major at the UK Open, I think 2012 in Bolton back then, and you were one of the speedy qualifiers. Now we've just got the Riley's qualifiers, but I was reading up, it doesn't sound believable. At each event, the qualifier, 2 parts. First, you'll throw 15 darts, and then the 8 players with the highest score will play in 4 knockout games to determine who qualifies. Is that actually what happened?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It was a bit surreal sort of thing. So me and my dad just travelled to Stoke, and you threw your 15 darts each, and the person who had the highest score played the person with the least score. and I think it was like the top 8 had qualified, so it was like 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7. I think I was second, and I ended up playing a lad called Daz Twist, who's quite well known around the Manchester area. And yeah, I think it was 1 leg of 701 or something. So yeah, I managed to beat him, and yeah, qualified for my first UK Open, which was in Bolton, which was nice because obviously it moved away from there a few years later, and it was just nice to say that I'd played there in that UK Open as well.
And that year you also got in on the TV cameras as well for the World Masters, making the last 32. But at the start of 2013, we see you make that trip to Q School. So I'm guessing all those experiences you'd had in that last year, that gave you the belief to go to Q School and try and get that tour card.
Yeah, I think the UK Open was obviously in the March sort of thing, and yeah, I had about 6 months off that year because I wasn't playing too well. But then, yeah, I realised I qualified for the Women World Masters because I had my England call up the year before, and so yeah, I sort of picked them up a couple of weeks before and had a bit of a practice, and yeah, managed to qualify for the last 32 there, and got drawn against my stable mate from Cheshire, Tony O'Shea, and he got the better of me unfortunately on that time. But yeah, no, I think it was on ESPN or Eurosport or something like that. But yeah, it was a great first little TV appearance for myself, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Got my love back for the game, and yeah, sort of moved on from that really.
Yeah, he definitely did. And looking at that Q School, the second day you made it to the final round, lost out 6-5 in a decider. How tough was that defeat to take at the time? Still 2 more days to play, but coming so close to that tour card on that day.
Yeah, I remember being disappointed, but not overly, because I know I was up there on the overall points merit sort of thing. So my mate, obviously Ricky Evans, he got through on the first day that year. So yeah, I knew after the second day that I was going to have a good chance. I got a few more wins each day that I was going to be up there, and I was really pleased with the way I was playing. It wasn't to be that day, but yeah, I had 2 more steady days, and I think I lost in the final on the last day as well, or something like that. So yeah, no, I was really happy with the performance overall. And yeah, just looking forward to getting the year started on the Pro Tour then.
Yeah, comfortably finishing second on that order of merit to get that tour card. What was that moment like when you found out that you had done enough and you would be on the PDC circuit with your good friend as well, Ricky Evans?
Yeah, it was very surreal. I wasn't sure really what to expect. I hadn't really paid much attention to obviously the PDC or the Q School or anything before that really. So yeah, once I found out I got it, I was buzzing to start, and you know, the first couple of months it was. It wasn't easy by any stretch, but you know, I think I was just enjoying being there more than anything. I was more surprised that I wasn't getting battered every week. You know, I was putting up some good performances. I think one of my first big wins was against Van der Voort. That sort of gave me the confidence to know I could mix it with some of the best then.
Yeah, that year we saw you a few times on the Euro Tour, but I've got to mention one win in particular, and that is beating Phil Taylor on the floor that year. How much did a win like that mean to you, beating a player who many regard as the best ever?
Yeah, in my eyes, he is the best ever and always will be the best ever. Taylor's obviously a lot of the reason why so many people are playing darts these days, and you know, he's the reason that players get paid so much more money these days compared to what they were when obviously the likes of Taylor and Bristow and everyone else started out. You know, he's done so much for the sport, but yeah, to beat him that weekend was fantastic. I remember I was sitting on a table with Gooster, Stuart Kellett, and a couple of others, and I said to him, I think, you know, they asked me how I was finding it. I said, yeah, you know, I'm happy I haven't been battered or beaten up too badly in, you know, the early rounds. You know, I'm picking up a few wins over that, and the draw come out and I got Taylor. And I was like, oh, I've definitely spoken too soon there. So yeah, played Taylor first round, and I think I went 2-0 down. And I thought, oh, here we go, here comes your first drumming sort of thing. But no, I just sort of relaxed and got into it, yeah, and managed to beat Phil. So yeah, and then it obviously come out. I think it was like the day after that's Phil's only ever lost in the first round of a Players' Championship. That's the only time he's never had to pick up any money sort of thing. So yeah, that's something to take out of it, yeah.
Definitely is. Well, the progress continues. The end of 2014, you're making your debut in the PDC World Championship at Ali Pali against another multiple-time world champion, Adrian Lewis. What memories do you have of that day playing in the biggest tournament in darts for the first time?
Yeah, I think I was just buzzing to get there really, looking forward to it. And yeah, I think the occasion got to me in the end sort of thing, and yeah, a bit too excited, but no, I loved every second of it. I wouldn't change it, but yeah, it was just really surreal. I remember coming off after the first 2 sets, and I said to Adrian Lewis, I said, oh, I think you're averaging about 120 for the first 2 sets or something like that. And he turned to me and goes, welcome to the big league, kid. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm in for a bit of trouble here. But no, it was fantastic, and you know, even Lewis gave me some great words of encouragement and said, oh, you played a good game. And I knew it wasn't my best game sort of thing, but he said, you know, it's the first time up there. You know, I loved it. You know, I just couldn't wait to get back there again.
And you got back there the next year, second trip to Ali Pali, and you had that semi-final on the Euro Tour that year as well. But the win against Kim Huybrecht's a last set decider. What did it feel like to walk off the stage having won a game on that big stage?
Yeah, well, so the run to the Euro semi-final, I actually beat Kim on the route to that, and then obviously the draw come out, and I was like, well, that's a good one for me. You know, I've just played him in one of the latest Euro tours. You know, it's still going to be fresh in his mind. It's still fresh in my mind. He knows I can beat him. I know I can beat him. So yeah, it was a good draw for me, really. But I think Kim was like world number 7 or something at the time, so I still knew it was going to be a really, really tough game. I got out of the blocks quite quickly. Went down 2-1 in sets, missed a few doubles, but then I think I was about due to lose 3-1. I think at 180 to leave 42. I think he missed a shot at 95. I took out the 42, and I think I won 6 legs on the trot in the end. Won 3-1 that set to make it 2-2, and won the last set 3-0. And I was buzzing. I had a load of mates in the crowd, and all my family and everyone were there as well. So it was really nice, and just magical feeling. I've never experienced anything like it, really.
Good times. And the next round against Mensur Suljovic, probably most remembered for both of you having a shot at the double for that 9-dart. Mensur edging it 4-3 in the end. How did you reflect, though, on that campaign at Ali Pali?
Yeah, no, I was happy with it, to be fair. I used to practice with Mark Webster quite a bit. Obviously, he was in Denby and I was in Shropshire, so we used to meet up in Chester sort of thing, and on a bit of a chuck. We met up in between the 2 games. Obviously, he was still in the Worlds as well. And I remember saying to him, I'm just not looking forward to this game. You know, I was quite a speedy player back at the time, and Mensur was slow pass. I just got a bad feeling I'm going to get absolutely beaten for 6 sort of thing. You know, he's going to beat me 4. I think that's my worst fear, getting beat 4-0 sort of thing. So, but I got up there, I played my game, played really well. I was really happy the way I played. Just missed a few too many chances at doubles and things like that, and Mensur took them out. You know, he had a crucial 102 finish. At one point that knocked me for 6, and he went on to win it. But both like you said, memorised for the 2 9-darter attempts. I think mine was by far the worst ever attempt at a 9-darter on the Ali Pali stage. I think I was about 4.2 metres away, but no, to have a shot at that with the crowd behind you going yes every treble that went in sort of thing, it was something that lived me forever. Like.
Definitely. Well, fast forward to the end of 2017, you finished the season outside the top 64. What was it like for you then, having to go back to Q School to try and get that tour card? Was it difficult to regroup after a tough run of form?
Yeah, definitely. It's a hard place to be. You know, if you're in that pro tour room and you're not winning, and you go in there 3-4 days a week, and you're getting beat first game. It's a tough place to keep walking back into. It can be very lonely. You're sitting on a table for the class players and they're coming back winning. And you're coming back lost. You pick up your bag and go back to the hotel, and it can be a very lonely place. So it's a tough few years. But it's the same in any sport. You've got to regroup and get your head together and sort of try and build back up, really. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, basically. Form's just starting to get back to slightly what it was. But it's taken a good old while.
Well, despite not having that tour card early on in 2018, you make your mark, you get to a semi-final in the UK Open qualifiers. That gets you to Minehead for the UK Open as the 19th seed. It meant you had a bye to the Friday evening as well, and by this time we all know the event was going to be behind closed doors due to the weather. What was the build-up like for you playing in the event?
Well, the build-up was a bit surreal, really. We were on the way to the venue. There was me and Ricky Evans on the way to the venue, and we were obviously keeping an eye on Twitter to see what was going on, and we weren't 100% sure that the actual event was still going ahead or what was going on, because I think Minehead themselves tweeted that the event had been cancelled, and the PDC tweeted that the event was still going on but behind closed doors. So we sort of rocked up. I wasn't playing in the morning, but Ricky was, and we sort of rocked up thinking, what the hell's going on here? But it was obviously clear to us once we got there that it was being played behind closed doors. So it wasn't much of a build-up, really. We were sort of thrown into it that weekend, but it's maybe a good thing sometimes that you don't have to worry yourself about anything or prepare too much. It was just sort of get on with it. But it was a great weekend for me. I played some really good stuff. I think that was the most frustrating bit, really, because obviously I've been playing some really good stuff. Went to Q School, played horrendously, and then a few weeks later comes to the UK Open, and qualifiers, and I'm playing some really good stuff, reach a couple of semi-finals and everything. But yeah, it's obviously too late then. You've lost your tour card and you've got to try and fight for it back through the year. But yeah, that UK Open weekend was fantastic for me. Obviously my first major semi-final, a lot of TV coverage. But yeah, it's just a shame the crowd wasn't there.
Yeah, a great run nonetheless. And 2019, you do get your tour card back at Q School after a year without one. We saw you make some deep runs on that Challenge Tour as well, 2018. So how are you feeling about your game heading into that new season with your tour card back?
Yeah, I think it was still a difficult one. I don't think I was still playing that great. I think I scraped my tour card back. I think I was one of the last couple of positions. Whereas obviously the first time I did it, I was like number 2 in the rankings, in the order of merit over the Q School. So yeah, I don't think I was that full of confidence. And if you're not full of confidence when you're going into a Pro Tour weekend or whatever, you're going to get punished all the time. But I think that 2 years really took it out of me then. It was a tough 2 years. I don't think I come close to qualifying for many things at all, really. But yeah, this last couple of years has just obviously been a bit of a confidence rebuild and everything like that, really.
Well, before we get on to this year, we've got to mention the famous 170 attempt on the Euro Tour when you hit the 2 treble 20s, gestured to the crowd to make some noise, then you set up instead with the single 18. Had you ever done something like that before, or did it just come to you to have a bit of fun with the crowd?
Yeah, it would just sort of come to me then. I knew myself that I wasn't playing well, and I was lucky to beat Mike Decker in the first round. My mate Pete Merrick was with me at the time, and I said, it just doesn't feel comfortable with darts or anything like that, and he just said, get up there and have a bit of fun. And I think I was 3-1 down or 4-1 down to Gurney at the time, and yeah, I left myself 170 the first 2 trebles and gave it the big into the crowd, knowing full well that I was never going to go for the ball because I think Gurney was on 161, which obviously he's capable of doing, but the chances of him doing that every time are pretty slim sort of thing. So yeah, gave it the big into the crowd and went for the big 18. Nearly snatched it, but yeah, I got away with the big 18. But yeah, and then made myself a fucking idiot by missing the double 16s.
Yeah, we weren't going to mention that. Well, the next few years, obviously, they were affected by the pandemic. End of 2020, you finish outside the top 64, and we think back to that time during the lockdowns, players suddenly not earning any money, they're not playing. So what was the situation like for you? Were you still working at the time, or did you have to go back to work?
No, not really. My dad sort of moved in with us because he wasn't too well at the time. So yeah, I was looking after him, which was quite good, really. So I had a bit of time off darts and that, which was nice, and got me away from like hating the game as well. Because once you're in that room and you lose all the time, you do something to the game. Always puts you in a bad mood. But yeah, lockdown I think was quite good for me. I had a bit of a break and spent time with the missus, dad and the dogs, and just chilled out for a good 6, 7, 8 months, and yeah, sort of started picking them back up again from that then, really.
Well, let's get on to these last few weeks, because you've ticked off a fair few milestones, starting off in the WDF, winning England Open, your first ranking title in that system, and back in the early days of your career you played some of those large open events. So have you got your eye on a possible World Championship that side? You've definitely qualified for the World Masters. Will we see you back in that?
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. That's the plan. I think this year I was just going to plan on doing as many competitions as I can, really, keep myself busy, try and build the confidence back up, and see bits of Europe and do a few competitions with the missus around Europe, and do some sightseeing while we're at it as well. I picked up a few points earlier on in the year, and then obviously the England Open went quite well for me, and I won one of the silver events there. So yeah, fingers crossed, if I keep playing the way I am and keep picking up points and tournament wins like I have been, hopefully I'll have a trip to Lakeside at the start of next year as well. So yeah, that's the aim at the minute. Yeah.
Well, the following weekend after that, winning the WDF, is back to the Challenge Tour, and after losing 5-4 in a final on the Friday, you go one step better on the Sunday to win your first PDC title. What were the emotions like when that winning double goes in? You've got that first PDC title.
Yeah, I was really happy, to be fair. I say when I first went on the Challenge Tour, was basically after the weekend that I had in Minehead when I got to the semi-final for the UK Open. So I thought, I'm in great form, got to carry this on now. And it just didn't happen. I completely lost everything. And then that sort of spiraled for the next year then of playing absolutely horrendously. So it's taken me a good while to get used to the Challenge Tour, the setup, the 2 tournaments in one day. And I really did despise it when I first went on the Challenge Tour. You think to yourself, you're competing against the best of the world, and now you're on the second tour sort of thing. You're just trying to get your head around it to start with. That's the most difficult part. But yeah, no, when the winning double went in, I think it was just more relief than anything else. The Friday where I lost in the final, I felt lucky to be there. I hadn't played well all day. I think I averaged about 90 for the day, which, sounds good, don't get me wrong. But when you're in a field of players that are there, it's, if you're going to average 90, you're usually going to get pipped one game or another before you get to the final sort of thing. And GM played really well in the final, deserved to win. Yeah, I was lucky to win the semi-final anyway, and GM deserved to beat me. But yeah, the Sunday I picked them up Sunday. I had a practice, and they just seemed to be coming out my hand really well. And I averaged 96 for the day, and I just felt like no one was going to beat me. So it was really good. It was a big confidence boost for me, sort of thing.
And that title, that's put you right in the mix on that Challenge Tour Order of Merit as well. Now up to 4th, still 2 more weekends to come. So are you potentially looking at maybe getting that top 2 finish, get your tour card and Ali Pally, or are you still managing your expectations with that one?
Yeah, I mean, if I could continue to play the way I did on that Sunday there, happy days. I didn't play too well yesterday at Memphis, but today was a bit better. But yeah, if I continue playing on that Sunday, I think there's only myself stopping me getting one of them top 2 spots recently. Obviously, there's some cracking players there who can average up to 110, 112, 115 sort of thing. So, if you do fall unlucky and drop on one of them players that are going to have a worldie against you, there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, as long as I can keep my consistency going and keep averaging the high 90s, I'm more than confident getting into that top 2 spot. But yeah, just how it goes on the day. Unfortunately, it's not something you can predict or say what's going to happen. It's just one of them things, isn't it?
Definitely not. Well, lastly, before we let you go, you mentioned you've been playing in the online league this week as well, and recently we saw you take out that 110 treble 20 bull with 2 darts. I better plug my finish from the weekend. I had 80 left, treble 10 through the second one in the tyre, then hit the ball to win. So what's the most outrageous finish that you've pulled out in a game?
I think one of my favourite finishes, I think I was playing Adrian Lewis on the Pro Tour. I think I had 107 left, I went bull 7 bull. That was a bit of a cheeky one. And then I think Gary Anderson, I think I had 114 left. That was at the UK Open. I think it was the last 32. He was battering me at the time. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't even close to him. And obviously there's a bit of a crowd because obviously it's Gary Anderson, one of the world's greatest. And 114 left. I went 54, 10. And then went bull as well. So yeah, that was a nice one as well. But yeah, I only sort of do the stupid finishes if I'm getting battered or losing the game quite heavily, sort of thing, just to try and give myself a bit of a boost, or just try and enjoy the game and put a bit of fun back into it, and at least take something out of it then.
Well, David, it's a pleasure to chat to you. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on the titles on the last couple of weekends, and wish you all the best for what else is to come in 2022.
Fantastic. Cheers for the call, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks to David for joining us on this week's show. Now we'll continue with our recap of Blackpool, but we'll move over to the first ever women's match play, which became the first event the PDC ever held in Blackpool that wasn't won by an American the first year, as it was a first TV title since becoming the Queen of the Palace for Fallon Sherrock, believe it or not. Of course, she has made a final since then in the PDC. How important was this win, though, for Fallon going into the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think it was an important win for her, and as you say, not her first TV title that she's won. She's won titles on TV before in the BDO, the last one being the 2018 BDO World Trophy. And as you heard earlier in the interview, Hanna mentioned that win to her in the press conference, and it must feel like a long time ago for Fallon, that title, considering what she's gone on to achieve in the game since then. The history-making wins at Ali Pally, last year the World Series finals, you mentioned the Grand Slam, getting to the quarterfinals and becoming one of the most famous, one of the most recognisable players in darts. And with that, obviously comes a lot of attention, a lot of pressure to perform every time you go up on the stage. And watching it on Sunday afternoon, she did have a tough run to get the title, even the first round. We've spoken about Katie Sheldon, her opponent, a few times this year. She's really making some strides, and she pushed Fallon close, 4-2 in that first round, that short format, first to 4 legs. So it was a close test for the first round. Lorraine Winstanley, 5-2 in the semi-finals, the third seed, one of the toughest players she could have come up against in the semi-finals. And Eileen de Graaf getting past Lisa Ashton, she deserves some credit, beating Lisa 5-4 in that semi-final. And Fallon didn't have it all her own way in the final. She was 3-2 down. She missed a few doubles early on in that final, Eileen taking the lead, but she comes back from that disappointment, a 180, a 1-4-2 finish to get it back to 3-all, a couple of scrappy legs in there, but held throw in 14 darts in that one as well. And even in the last leg, I think just matching or bettering Eileen's score in each visit, and finishing it off with that 85 finish on double five to get over the line. And yeah, there's a lot to play for Fallon for the rest of the year. She's going to be going to the World Series very soon in Australia and New Zealand. Those events held over from 2020. She's going to be in the Grand Slam, and you'd back her to finish in the top two of the Women's Series and get that spot in the PDC World Championship as well. So, there's a lot going for her. And I think winning a title on TV, we could see how much it meant to her as well, to be the first name on that trophy. And we're going to come on to talk about how prestigious this Women's World Matchplay is in a moment. But there's no getting away that she has come through a quality field to win it. And we know Fallon, she loves playing on the stage. There were a few nervy performances that afternoon, and to be expected. There's a few players making their TV debuts, a few players that haven't got a lot of recent experience playing on TV, but that's something that Fallon does have. She's played a lot on TV the last few years, and I think that's shown at key moments in that afternoon, that session, to get over the line and come through those three games. And I just hope that we do see her give that WDF Women's World Championship a go next year, and even before that, the World Masters. We know that's going to be a huge field. TV coverage we don't know about yet, but they're two titles that she's not won before, and they both carry a lot of history in the game. And if she could back up this Women's World Matchplay, go and win a World Masters and a World Championship in the WDF, a Women's World Championship, I think she'd go into both of those events with a lot of confidence that she could add those titles to her CV. So for me, confidence-wise, it's going to do a lot for her winning the title, being the player at the end lifting the trophy, and hopefully we're going to see her compete in a lot more women's events on TV and maybe add a few more titles to her collection.
Yeah, I think the confidence is the key thing. And that's, I think, something that's been missing from her game much of this year. And I don't know why she fell off so much this year compared to how she was performing at the back end of last year. But there was definitely a significant regression starting at Q School and continuing when we've seen her play pretty much everything so far this year. Even when she was winning titles in the women's series, it was less frequently, and she was not playing nearly as consistently and as well as she has for the last few years. And it brought some question marks going into here. I thought she had a difficult draw with Katie Sheldon in the first round, and it showed. Katie Sheldon, had some big outs to stay in the match, but was up ahead, was up a break at 2-1. It easily could have ended up being 4-2 the other way. But Fallon hit the right shots at the right time. Fallon's scoring was incredible against Lorraine Winstanley, but she missed a heap of doubles in that match, and that's why she only averaged 81.5 as opposed to, for a while she was averaging in the 90s, and probably would have averaged well into the 90s if her doubling hadn't deserted her in that match. There still are some question marks about her game. She was not playing at the level that she was at the back end of last year. But she didn't need to win this title. She lifted her game when she needed to against Katie Sheldon. And beyond that, she wasn't really ever in doubt the rest of the afternoon. And it should give her some confidence that she can play at least at a steady level, even when she's not at her best. A steady level's not going to compete in the World Series. She's going to have to lift her game. She's going to have to find that game that we know she has, because she's brought it countless times before on the biggest stages in darts. She's done it at the World Championship. She made a final at the Nordic Darts Masters. She made it to the quarterfinals, where she pushed the best player at that time in the world all the way in that match. But she's going to have to find that game again if she's going to contend in Australia and New Zealand. But it's going to give her some confidence that the worst of it is behind her. Whatever was plaguing her development for the first half of this year, it looks like it's behind her, because she played at a much better level than that. But again, and for that reason, I should say, it is very important. But she's still going to have to lift her game to justify being the face of world darts as she's become. Because playing at the level she's had for much of this year, and even with the misses and doubles that she had in Blackpool, isn't going to cut it. But we'll see. She's done it before, and I'd expect she'll do it again.
Well, let's get on to our second of our questions of the week. And this is one that's certainly got a lot of debate on social media the last few days. What is the premier event in women's darts? Is it the WDF Women's World Championship, or is it the PDC Women's World Matchplay?
I think it still is the Women's World Championship, but only just. And there's a few reasons why it's so close already. One is that this event is at the Winter Gardens and broadcast on Sky. And therefore, it's reaching a huge audience with a huge promotional arm around it that ties it to the second biggest event on the calendar, or the third biggest, because I think the Premier League might get better television viewership. So in terms of television viewership, the third biggest event on the calendar. And that's going to draw people in and draw prestige to this event, even for its first staging. That said, the Women's World Championship does have 2.5 times the prize fund for the winner. It's a bigger event. It's a more established event. And because it's a bigger event, it has more players. Even if Fallon Sherrock didn't play in it this past year, even if Lisa Ashton didn't qualify, and even if Anastasia Dobromyslova was wrongfully prevented from competing in it, it still has more of the best players. But that will change. Even if this event only stays at 8 next year, we are seeing each and every Women's Series weekend more and more of the top women's players going and competing. That will start to shift the calculus as more of them show up each of those weekends to play the 4 or 5 events, try to qualify for this. It will only raise the prestige of what is going on the PDC events for women's darts. So I'm still going to say the WDF Worlds is the premier event for now, but I don't think that will be the case forever. I don't even know if it'll be the case next year, especially now that the PDC have announced that the Women's Series is expanding to 24 events. And the Order of Merit is not just for the first half of the year, but it will be a rolling Order of Merit. So the qualification for next year's event starts at the next set of Women's Series events. The counterpoint, though, to that is because it's now a longer qualification system and it's rotating, we might start and it's rolling rather. We might see some players struggle and decide not to keep playing in all of them. So I want to see how that plays out. It's something that could end up happening, that players who are losing earlier on or not doing as well might stop going, because it is a lot of darts to play in a very short amount of time when you show up for the Women's Series events. And that could lead to some of the top players just no longer playing it as the season goes on. But assuming that doesn't happen, or assuming at least most of them keep fighting, I do think that the Women's World Matchplay will become very quickly the premier event.
Well, looking at how the poll is going on our Twitter at the moment, and it's going to be open for the rest of the week, so do go on there, have your say, let us know what you think. 28% at the moment going with the Women's World Matchplay, 72% going with the WDF World Championship. And this question really stemmed from the press conference after the final. Fallon Sherrock suggesting that the Matchplay was the premier event, and the players, they'll all have their own opinions, won't they? Some will agree with Fallon, it is the Matchplay. Some will say that it is the WDF World Championship. And I think some people, they've probably got short memories, I guess, because it was only 3 months ago we saw the return of that Women's World Championship through the WDF at Lakeside. We had the expanded field, 24 players. We had that extended format in some places as well, the final first to 4 sets. And we had an increased prize fund as well, 25 grand to the winner, the highest prize we've had in the history of ladies televised darts, and all 23 games shown on TV as well. And I think just because the PDC have come in and put on a TV event for the ladies, which does deserve some credit for doing that, because they didn't have to, but it doesn't automatically make it the premier event for the ladies. Could it become the premier event? I think it could, like you. I think it could become the biggest event for the ladies. And the PDC, they've announced the tournament is going to continue in 2023, which again is a good sign. The Women's Series going up to 24 events next year, which again, more opportunities for the ladies, more opportunities for them to play, which is only a good thing. But I think at the moment, to call a one session event, best of 11 legs final, 10 grand to the winner, compare that to the WDF event, which is, via the BDO, it's been running for 20 years. It's got 2.5 times more money for the winner. I don't think that's a take that I can agree with. But the bottom line for me is that it's great that we've got the ladies having more events to play in. They've got the Women's World Matchplay, they've got the World Championship, and they can play in both of them. I think some people might not think that, but they can. They can play in the WDF World Championship, they can play in the Women's Series. And for me, I think like a lot of darts fans, we'd love to see Fallon, Lisa, Bo, Makuru and so on all in the same room, all in the same venue more often. And hopefully that's going to happen, whether that is in the Women's Series or in the WDF events will see that, because I think that the ladies' game is something that's got a lot of room to grow. And I think the more we see those players go up against each other, the more we see it happening on a stream or on TV, it's only going to help grow the ladies' game. And yeah, I think at the moment we are in an interesting position with the ladies' game. I think the PDC, they could quite easily throw more money at that Women's World Matchplay, do what Barry Hearn did. One of the first things he did as chairman of the PDC is he upped the prize money of the PDC World Championship to more than the BDO. And again, that's another factor when you compare things is the prize money. And I think you've got pretty much, it's a close field between the two of them. A lot of players do cross over, but I think at the moment, given we've only just had 1 year of this Women's World Matchplay, I think I am going to go with the WDF for now.
And now, and I think I've done the maths correct this time, we'll move on to our fifth, 1, 2, 5. Yes, 5. No, 3. Third final guest, Raymond Smith.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by one of the latest qualifiers for this year's PDC World Championship, Raymond Smith. Thanks for the time again, Raymond. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. Yourself?
Doing good, thank you. And it's been almost a week now since you won the DPA Satellite Tour Play-Offs to secure your return to Ali Pali in December. What's the last week been like, knowing that you'll once again be playing in the biggest darts tournament in the world?
Yeah, it's still sinking in a bit. I mean, this time last week I had no idea that I was heading down. So, yeah, I'm just trying to catch up with it all, and then trying to get everything in place, because now I've got time to prepare for it. Yeah, I'm gonna sit back and try and put all my ducks in a row.
Yeah, we'll come back to the weekend later, but let's rewind to when we last had you on our show, and it was just before Christmas. You'd won your first 2 games at Ali Pali to make the last 32, which meant that you were staying over in the UK for Christmas, but you did have your son Kai, who also played in the tournament with you. How much did it help having Kai with you for those few days?
Yeah, no, it was a godsend. I was saying to my wife, I think I would have just disappeared at some point there if I didn't have Kai with me, but yeah, fortunately got through that little episode.
Came back after the Christmas break. You beat Florian Hempel to make the last 16. As you're making this progress through the tournament each round, what was the reaction like back home, and how did it feel for you getting through all those games as well?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was I don't know. I suppose it was one of those career validating times. You know, it was really, really good. Not just for the time on the board and the good fortune I had there, but as I said, back home it was well received. In my local club, they had watching parties and all that sort of stuff, and you know, the messages that I got from people that I played with throughout the years was yeah, very, very, very validating. You know, 1, that I'm there, I'm playing well, and 2, that people still follow and support me and thought of me.
Next up was Mervyn King in the last 16, and you got off to a great start in that game, 3-1 up before Mervyn came back to win in that last set. And I remember there was a lot of talk in the build-up about how a win in that game that could have got you that 1-year tour card. Was that in your mind at all, or was playing for a spot in the quarterfinals of the World Championship enough to think about?
Yeah, I think that whole game I was just trying my best not to implode, and I ended up losing in the end. But I wasn't fussed on the tour card. I knew I didn't have the capacity to take it on at the time. I wasn't thinking about a semi-final. I wasn't looking past Merv, but yeah, I don't know. I just tapped out at the wrong time.
Well, you then head home back to Australia. Not long into this year, you're playing on the DPA circuit, and I saw on Twitter you posted your disappointment about a new format which was being used. Can you talk us through what was wrong with it, and did the DPA take your concerns on board?
Oh, this is probably going to get me in trouble with the DRA, but yeah, so we had a tournament format, and look, I'll make the concession up front. The work and effort involved in trying to come up with a satellite tour to play a major tournament out of 5 different hubs around Australia was a massive undertaking. But yeah, I mean, we in Queensland, we'd finished our round robin phases before Western Australia had even started, and then I think I waited around for 2.5 hours And then after 2.5 hours, it was I was supposed to play a game, and I'm on my board waiting, and then the half an hour went by, and I said, "Look, I can't raise the person I'm playing. Can I claim the forfeit because they're not answering?" And they said, "Oh, their phone's gone flat, etc., etc." Anyway, another 20 minutes or so went by, and then I finally got a game, and by that time it'd been several hours. So I got through that one, and then I was supposed to play Robbie King, I think it was, after that, and they said you can either play now and wait 2 hours, or you can wait an hour and a half and play. And I just said it's 8 o'clock at night by that time. The bar staff had finished for the night. All the toilets were closed. The amenities were closing, and we were in the last 16 phase. So I just said we're not going to have any facilities or anything to finish it. You go into the toilet in the dark and all that. And I just said this can't. We should be able to cancel the tournament, or not cancel the tournament, but put a stop to the tournament now. Come back in the morning and finish it off, because we can't keep going. It had been 8 hours, and we're still not into the top 16 rounds with no. And then it was just we're told to finish it out. It is what it is, and all that sort of stuff. And we just said, look, I can't stay here and finish this off. It's going to be too long of a night. You've got to come back in the next morning and play again. And so I thought, I got the top 16 points, I'll come back in the morning. And then there was more controversy after that. And I think I just had the Saturday off, and I thought I'll regroup and I'll try and come back Sunday. So end up regrouping, coming back Sunday, played well. And we put in all our feedback back to the DPA, but it was at the time COVID wound up in Australia. We said we should be back on tour, eliminate this problem, and that's kind of sort of where it all ended.
Well, let's get on to some better times for you. And I've got to mention, recently it was a successful weekend for the Smith family. You winning the men's singles, you and your partner winning the mixed pairs, and then your two sons winning the men's doubles at the same event. That must have been a proud moment for you. Yeah,
absolutely. That was a great day. And I played Kai in the final of the mixed pairs as well. So we ended up taking home a few golds and that. And just as a family, it was a really, really good moment. We got to sit down at the end of the weekend and take it all in. But not just for all of us, but it was a coming of age for my youngest son. He pegged 147 and 161 under some tight games, and really put his own stamp on his own game.
Very nice. Well, I mentioned we saw one of your sons, Kai, play at Ali Pali last year. I think he mentioned recently he's been busy away from darts for a lot of this year. But what are his plans darts-wise for the rest of this year? Are we going to see more of him?
So he's taken on playing for Queensland. So in the DA affiliate, or Darts Australia affiliate, he wants to try and get some experience in there, like week-long tournament play. But he started a new job when he got back from the UK, so he's measured out what he wants to do in the next couple of years, and of course one of them is to get the capital behind him to move to the UK and have a serious crack at it.
Excellent. Well, last month we also saw Simon Whitlock, Damon Heta make history, winning the PDC World Cup for Australia for the first time. What did you make of their run to the title?
Yeah, it was awesome. I had the biggest smile on my face the whole tournament, because you could just see that they gelled really, really well together. Like Simon played like the Simon of old, and Damon was just in cruise control. What looked like cruise control. It's like, they both put on the green and gold shirt and lifted.
And obviously yourself being back in Australia, did their World Cup win make a lot of noise back home? Obviously we've got the World Series coming back to Australia, New Zealand soon. Have you noticed more interest in darts now?
A lot more people are talking about it in very, very different circles. But I don't know. I think everybody is just getting a little bit tired with darts at the moment. Playing in state bubbles and all that sort of stuff. They just want to get back to tournaments, travelling, and we played a tournament at the start of the year, and everybody's excited and buzzing for the year to come. And unfortunately, fortunately, we did get a little bit of mainstream media attention here, but unfortunately, not enough to really whip the Australian player base into a frenzy.
Well, let's get on to last weekend. And following you on Twitter, it sounded like an incredible story to get that spot at Ali Pali this year. The playoffs were on Sunday, but when did you find out that you were eligible to play in those playoffs?
My manager messaged me on Wednesday afternoon, and he says, do you want to go to Rarilla for the playoffs? And I'm like, I'm not eligible. I didn't meet the 50% criteria. Event 3 was cancelled. Event 4, I had to go and see. I went up to Townsville to see my niece, who I haven't seen in years. And event 5, I'd already committed to a tournament in Victoria. So I said, I haven't met the criteria. And he says, we've got to nominate by tonight. And I says, I haven't met the criteria. I can't be eligible. We'll have a look at it next year. So apparently he's paid my nominations, and my manager Greg's paid my nominations, and says, there you go, we're going down to Rarilla. You don't get a choice. And I was like, are you pulling contract on me? He says, yeah. So, I knew I was going down at around about 11:30 a.m. on the Thursday.
So when you did find out, what were the logistics like in making sure you could play? Because I think you said it was a 14-hour drive to get to that qualifier.
Yeah. So I'd already committed to playing Saturday morning in a mixed doubles event. So I knew my partner was looking forward to it, and I says, "Look, I'm not going to bail. We'll sort something out." And we played, made it to the final. We finished the final, and then pretty much as soon as we finished the final, shook hands, grabbed my bag, and were in the car. And we started driving at around about 12:15 in the afternoon. And we made it to a place just out of Sydney by 11:15. By the time I had a shower and all that, it's nearly midnight, and then we're up at 6 o'clock in the morning to finish the drive. So,
well, looking at your run to winning those playoffs, started out with that group stage. You won 4 out of the 5 games to make it through, and I was looking at the results. The 11 darter in the decider, I think, to beat Chris Crabb 3-2, one of the standout moments. But how are you feeling heading then into that knockout stage?
Yeah, it was fairly. I was pretty confident the whole day. I felt really, really good. I wasn't as tired. I knew that I was going to struggle with it at some point, but I managed it quite well. And I thought after the game against Kaya, he got me in the last game off the board. And then I sort of measured everything out. Then I think I sat down after the board phases to say, I think I'm all right. I feel okay. So it's going to be a good one to get me.
Well, looking at the knockouts, they started out against Dave Charnock, and you have to battle back from 5-3 down after holding for 5-4. You then break in 11 with 2 180s. The decider, a 130 finish for a 12 darter to win 6-5. To produce that level at the crunch moment, that must have felt good. Yeah,
that was. Yeah, it was just, I don't know, and there's those clenched moments throughout that game because Dave just put it on me from start to finish. And it wasn't one of those world-class type things where it's 140 for 140, but it's every time I sort of dropped off that tiny little bit, he punished it. So it was, I come back and I just hit that next gear. I remember doing it. It was in the semi as well. I kind of sort of just relaxed and got into it and sort of slipped into that next gear.
You then get past Peter Wilmot 6-1, then Howard Jones 2-0 in sets to make the final, and you said you were feeling good about your chances. But what was that 25-30 minute break like between the semis and the finals, getting yourself ready for that one game with that Ali Pali spot on the line?
Yeah, I think because I had so many tough games before it, I was kind of sort of more just trying to conserve energy and not thinking too far ahead. I could have lost quite easily to Dave Charnock. I had a really good game against Peter Wilmot, and And the game against Howard-Jones, like another one that just kept throwing ton after ton. It just reminded me of watching an old Alan Glazier, just throwing tons for fun. So I was more trying to recover from those games, not thinking about the Ali Pali. It was just keep the heart rate down, relax, have a breather, thank my lucky stars, and move on to the next one.
Well, it turned out well. You beat Joe Comito 3-0 in sets, but the game looked closer than the scoreline suggests. 2 of those sets going 3-2, the other one 3-1. But when you crossed that finish line, what was going through your head?
More relief. As I said, it wasn't one of those days where it was things came easy. It was a fair struggle the whole way through, and everyone was throwing them at me left and right, and I probably could have lost a few of those games quite easily. So it was more relief, and I think it took me until the following Wednesday that it all kind of sort of sunk in, the gravity of what had happened.
Well, I want to take you back to March. You tweeted, "Not sure an Ali Pali return will be on the cards this year. Play golf instead." If someone would have said back then you would be returning to Ali Pali in December, what would you have said to them?
Somebody had said on Monday, would I be going back? I'd pretty much try to put myself in a position that next time I do go back, I will sort out taking the wife with me and look at a potential, see if she likes it and all that sort of stuff. So I was thinking about next year. I wasn't thinking about this year at all. But if you had asked me, are we going back to the Ali Pali this year? Nah.
Well, after that tweet, did you play any golf at all, or have you stuck with the darts?
No, I played a little bit of golf, but I don't know. It's one of those funny things. I was watching those FDI rankings and all that sort of stuff, and then I got a little bit too involved with that, thinking, I won't play this one, but if I don't, then I'm going to lose my ranking. So I'll go and play. So that's all I was. Yeah.
Well, for me, you are one of the best players on Twitter as well. A lot of players now, they've got their management running their social media, but we love the honesty that you share with the fans, but you also have a bit of fun with it as well. And that video on the way to the qualifier, singing your walk-on song last weekend, did it just come on, or was it on your playlist? What else do you enjoy listening to as well?
No, it was on the manager's playlist. So we had quite a varied one. I think we bounced around between a few of the Bee Gees songs, and then we had Bone Thugs and Harmony come on, and a little bit of Tupac, and then this song come on. I thought, I'll whip this out and have a go. And then it was quite a mixed bag, but over a long drive, it's going to be a mixed bag.
Yeah, definitely. Well, lastly, before we let you go, obviously December, that's a long way off still when you'll be back at Ali Pali. But what are the plans between now and then, the next 5 months, playing-wise, to make sure you are ready for when you do come back?
Yeah, so I've got the Australian Open coming up in 2 weeks, which I'm a week behind because I didn't plug it into my calendar. And, so I've had a chat with my manager, and I'm going to try and set up a calendar of events. So apparently ADC is starting in Australia sometime soon. But there are a handful of tournaments that I wouldn't mind getting around to. So the one that sort of kicked it off for me last year was the North Queensland Classic. So I want to try and get back for that one. But mainly at the moment, it's the plans are quite involved. I'm hoping to not only get all my preparation done, but I've also formalised a lot of my professional skills and all that sort of stuff for just in case things go really well in the UK, and I can look at a possible move. So that's kind of sort of where all the planning's at. So if things do go my way, we aren't just looking at going home after the Ali Pali. We're looking at moving a lot of stuff over.
Well, fingers crossed for you. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that would love to see you have that crack on the tour at one point. Raymond, congratulations again on qualifying for Ali Pali again. Wish you all the best for the next few months and when that return to Ali Pali comes around at the end of the year as well.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks to Raymond for joining this week. Now, we'll finish off with a pair of listener questions. This first one comes from Thomas, and he has a question regarding Napi. I'm going to say I because I am going to be him for this. He says, I personally think with this run and a UK Open win earlier this year, he should be basically a shoo-in for the Premier League next year. But because he's so criminally underrated, I feel like he'll just be overlooked. What are your thoughts?
I think he's making his case stronger with each passing event. The more runs, the more performances he puts in, the harder it is going to be for him to be kept out. And at the end of the day, it does come down to the PDC, doesn't it? They're the ones that pick the players. I don't know if Sky have much of a say in it anymore, but we know the format is going to stay the same next year. Whether that's still with 8 players, we don't know yet. If it is a straight 8 players again, then I think Danny Noppert is probably going to have to do more, isn't he? Even though he has won that UK Open, he has just made the semi-finals of the World Matchplay, one of the biggest events. But you compare him to a Gary Anderson, if he was to go on a deep run at the World Championship again, say a semi-final, that could probably sway him more in to the field than Danny Noppert's CV for this year. But we did call Danny Noppert the most underrated in the PDC for a while. I think more people are coming around to the fact of how good Danny Noppert is. And I think another side of things as well, I look at the Premier League, the media it involves. I do think his English is maybe something he will have to work on. And we've said similar in the past about Krzysztof Ratajski a few years ago when he was in the mix for the Premier League. Being able to get your personality across to a UK audience, the Premier League is predominantly held in the UK and Ireland. I think that will help. And he said in one of his interviews in the match play, his English isn't very good. And I don't think it's got anything to do with darts, because if he goes and wins another TV title, he'll probably be in. It'll be hard to keep him out. But if he did improve on his English and he does get that personality across a lot more in his interviews to a bigger audience, gets a bigger fan base, I think you are going to see Danny Noppert in the Premier League. And if he wants to practice his English, Danny, we're happy to have you on the show as well as a guest.
Yes, we are. And, and you mentioned that, and we can also throw Mensur Suljovic into that conversation as well. Mensur did get into the Premier League, but he won a major title on BBC. He moved up to 5th or 6th in the world after the World Championships that year, and he was working on his English, and his personality comes through anyway without needing to speak English. And that got Mensur into the Premier League, and it kept him in. And his English has certainly improved significantly compared to what it was when he was first breaking through. But I think you're right. I think if Noppert does work on his English, and his English isn't, from what we've heard of it, isn't that bad. Maybe I've never had a conversation with him, or I've had very minimal conversation with him at the UK Open a few years ago. Beyond that, nothing really of substance. So I don't know how his English actually is. It could just be a confidence thing. There's a lot of people who speak a lot better English than you would think they do, but they don't have confidence in their own ability to communicate in a second or third language. And maybe it's that, because what we have heard seems pretty good. But I think that's a big thing that weighs against him. If he's working on his English, that will help. But the bigger thing that would keep him out of the Premier League is that it's still just 8 players. And the top 4 will be there. Peter Wright, Michael Van Guren, Guren Price, and Michael Smith, looking at the top 4 of the rankings as things would stand after the World Championships. That leaves 4 spots. Danny Noppert is provisionally 9th. He's less than 10,000 pounds from being provisionally 6th, and he's not that far behind James Wade, who's in 5th. So if he keeps moving up, he'll be in that Mensur Suljovic 5th or 6th position. But there are just 8 spots this time, and there are a lot of players fighting those out. And with only 4 of those spots remaining and still a bunch of televised events to come, I think he's in as things stand today, but he's not guaranteed. He'll need to keep chugging along, and making semifinals of majors will help.
And our last listener question comes from Gordon Lindsay, who says, potential question for the podcast. It's not a potential question. We are going to answer it. Do you think, following the obvious success from the women's match play, that they could potentially get a few more TV tournaments in the next few years?
I think they could, but I don't think they will. I don't think the PDC sees enough value in women's darts to have another televised event. To add one, I think, was because, well, one, it worked. You already have a week-long event. There's only one afternoon session as things currently were scheduled. You have a women's series that could be used to qualify players for it. And it wasn't that much of a commitment on top of that. To add another women's event, I think it's still a few years off. I think they want to see, well, what was the reaction from this? What are the television numbers? Is Sky going to pay, or is ITV going to pay anything more if there's another session of women's darts at another event? And if the answer to that is no, and the event isn't selling out, I think they'll rest their laurels on having this one event and trying to grow it. And I think that's going to be what the numbers show. I think this event they did well with, and with a full year to market it and advertise it, I think they will be able to sell it out next year, or to do something like we discussed about maybe integrating it better with the World Matchplay. How about this instead? How about having on the Saturday, instead of one session with both semifinals, have two sessions that each have one semifinal and two of the women's quarterfinals, and then come back for the semifinals and finals on Sunday afternoon at a longer format? That could work, and that gets you an extra, in the end, another additional session to the event, and integrates the women's event more in with the event. I think trying something like that to grow it and make this a bigger event, or at the very least to make it an event where it's not just first to 6 in the finals, but something more substantial like first to 9 or first to 10, is where they go next. If that works, and if the event starts selling out, then yes, I think we could eventually see a second event get added on if the demand is there. But I don't think the demand is there on the PD side yet. And I don't think it will be, at least for some time.
Yeah, can't argue with that. And I think from when Matt Porter, the PDC chief executive, has been on the show in the past, with anything that the PDC do, they're not going to go 100 miles an hour, are they? I think look at maybe like an event they've put on in Hungary or the Czech Republic. They get a big crowd for that weekend. They don't just then go and throw 4 or 5 more events there, do they? It's slow and steady progression for them in everything they do. And I think that's why they've been such a success that they've been over the years. And I think it's the same with the women's game as well. Seeing the gradual progression in events, the prize money, 24 women's series next year. We've got a second year of the match play, and seen a little bit of talk of maybe the PDC putting on a women's World Championship, and maybe that's where they go next. I'm not so sure. I think maybe we could see a second televised event, but I think we are thinking, or looking, I should say, a little bit further down the road, and where that comes in, I'm not quite sure. Maybe the week of a World Grand Prix or a Grand Slam, but I think at the moment, let's see how this second World Matchplay goes. Let's see what the uptake is like. I think more importantly, for the women's series, and especially the one coming up in Germany, which is going to be the next one, because last year that was one that got cancelled, low entries, and there were various reasons why, travelling, the restrictions at the time. Those are gone now for the most part. So I think the ladies now, we've said it before, need to back these events, and maybe there'll be a bit more interest come for the women's series after seeing that women's World Matchplay on TV, and players thinking, right, how do we get to play in this event? How do we get to play on that stage, the Winter Garden stage? And hopefully we'll see the interest continue to grow. We'll see those numbers for the women's series pick up as well. And if we see that happen, we know the PDC, they are going to reward those players. So maybe there will be a second one down the line. But I think at the moment, they're going to stick with the one and continue to push the women's series and see how far it can grow.
I guess we'll have to hang tight for some time on that. But anything else for this week?
Definitely will. Well, as always, big thank you to our guests for joining us, to Fallon, to Raymond, to David for their time. Thanks again to our producer Hanna for her hard work in Blackpool. Hope she enjoyed the trip, and hope you guys enjoyed her episode from the Winter Gardens. As I mentioned earlier, go and have a listen to it if you haven't already. And thanks to everyone for the support on our World Matchplay preview. It's one of our most listened to shows for a long time. So big thanks to everyone who listened to it. Keep listening. We appreciate the support. Thanks to our sponsor Dartwolf as well. We've got our merch shop as well. We're going to try and get some t-shirts out this week. So if you want to represent the weekly Dartscast in whatever you're doing, out and about, that would be much appreciated. So keep an eye out on our social media for that. That will be coming out later in the week. But until then, as I always say, enjoy the darts.
Yes, indeed. And it'll be, well, we'll see what we'll do over the next month, because there's not as much. But obviously, there's Pro Tour events in just over a week from now as of the time we're recording. But it does give us a lot of time, as it does every year, to reflect on the season that's been and try to figure out what we want to do for the rest of the year. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, let us know. If there's anything or anyone that we've missed over the first half of the year, let us know, because we'll have that time over the next month until the season really hots up, because as we always say, come September, come sexy September, it's an event every single weekend. You'll have to hang tight a little bit, and you'll enjoy a little bit of darts along the way, but mostly just hanging tight for now.